He was one of Britain's most celebrated heroes, a man who had won many victories against the French and Spanish navies. And she was an 18-year-old teenager who was considered quite the looker back in the day. And when they met, their connection was instant, passionate, and all-consuming. But there was a problem. He was married, and she was the wife of his close friend. So what did they do? They embarked on a scandalous affair that would shock the entire country. Who were Lord Nelson and Lady Emma Hamilton? Let's start with Lord Nelson, one of Britain's most famous naval commanders. Horatio Nelson was born into an aristocratic family in Norfolk, England in 1758. As was customary at the time, he joined the Royal Navy at the age of 12 as a volunteer. His father secured him the rank of midshipman so he could learn the ropes under the tutelage of seasoned sailors. During his early years at sea, Nelson was known for his reckless behavior, which got him into trouble with his superiors. He was also not very tall for a sailor, at just 5 feet 6. However, he possessed other qualities that made him an excellent leader, including an indomitable spirit, courage, determination, and tactical brilliance. These qualities helped him rise through the ranks despite his shortcomings. Over the years, he won several battles against the French and Spanish navies, becoming one of Britain's most celebrated heroes. Emma Hamilton was born in 1765 to a middle-class family in London. Her father was a lawyer, and her mother was a former actress. From an early age, Emma displayed an interest in the arts and began acting in amateur theatricals. When she was 16, her father arranged for her to marry Sir William Hamilton, a diplomat who was 25 years her senior. The marriage was not a happy one. Emma found her husband to be dull and unfaithful, and soon began having an affair with one of his friends, Lord Nelson. The year before Nelson's fateful encounter with Emma, he had been involved in a scandalous relationship with Lady Mary Anne Fanshawe. The two had met at a party and had begun exchanging passionate letters shortly after. However, when Lady Mary's husband discovered the affair, he challenged Nelson to a duel. Although Nelson's swordsmanship skills saved him from serious injury, the scandal had already made headlines around the country. Feeling remorseful and seeking redemption, Nelson threw himself into his work, preparing for battle against the French and Spanish navies. On October 14, 1793, Nelson led the British fleet to victory in the Battle of Cape St. Vincent, capturing or destroying 17 enemy ships in the process. This victory cemented his reputation as a brilliant naval commander and secured him the gratitude of the British public. However, unbeknownst to everyone, Nelson was harboring a secret that threatened to destroy everything he had worked for. Aboard the ship HMS Vanguard, Nelson had fallen madly in love with Emma Hamilton, the wife of his close friend and fellow officer, Sir William Hamilton. Despite knowing that his feelings for Emma were inappropriate, Nelson couldn't help but be drawn to her charm and beauty. Emma, too, found herself irresistibly attracted to Nelson's dashing good looks and magnetic personality. Soon enough, the two were caught up in a whirlwind romance, exchanging stolen kisses and longing glances whenever they had the chance. Lady Emma Hamilton was considered quite the looker back in the day. She was known for her captivating green eyes and flowing red hair. Standing at 5 feet 6, she was also quite tall for a woman of her time, and was often praised for her graceful demeanor. Many artists, including the famous Gilbert Stuart, were captivated by Emma's beauty and immortalized her in their paintings. Her fashion sense was also ahead of its time, and she was often seen wearing elegant gowns and stylish hats that accentuated her figure. Emma's beauty was not just skin deep, however. She was also intelligent and witty, and her charm was legendary. She was known for her infectious laughter, and was said to have had a talent for making people feel at ease in her presence. In fact, it was her beauty and charm that had initially attracted Nelson to her, and he was completely besotted with her once they began their affair. He would write her love letters and poems, and he would spend hours just talking to her and gazing into her eyes. For Nelson, Emma was not just a beautiful woman. She represented everything that he had ever wanted in a partner, and he was willing to risk everything to be with her. But how did their affair affect their relationship with Sir William? Sir William Hamilton was a wealthy aristocrat who had served in the diplomatic corps for many years. He was considered a bit of a ladies' man and had a reputation for being quite the charmer. However, he was also known for being a bit of a snob and had a tendency to look down on people who he considered to be of a lower social status. When he first met Nelson, he took the younger man under his wing and helped to advance his career. He also introduced Nelson to many of his high society friends, including his wife, Emma. From the moment that Nelson laid eyes on Emma, he was smitten. He found her to be the most beautiful woman he had ever seen, and he was determined to win her over. Nelson began spending more and more time with Emma, and the two quickly developed a close bond. They would talk for hours about art, literature, and politics, and they also shared a love of the theater. Emma was also drawn to Nelson's charm and charisma, and she soon found herself falling in love with him as well. Despite the fact that Nelson was married, the two began having a secret affair, meeting in secluded spots around London and exchanging stolen kisses and passionate embraces. However, Emma's relationship with Nelson was not without its challenges. As their affair continued, Emma became increasingly unhappy in her marriage to William. She found him to be dull and unfaithful, and she was ashamed of his low social status. Nelson, on the other hand, was torn between his love for Emma and his duty to his wife and family. He knew that his affair was scandalous and could ruin his reputation, but he couldn't help but be drawn to Emma's beauty and charm. Ultimately, though, Nelson's love for Emma won out over his sense of duty. He left his wife and moved in with Emma, and the two lived together openly as a couple. Nelson and Emma's relationship was a source of gossip and scandal in high society. People were shocked by Nelson's decision to leave his wife for Emma, who was considered to be of a lower social status. However, the couple didn't seem to care what people thought of them, and they continued to live together openly. In fact, they even traveled to Italy together, where they lived for several years. During their time in Italy, Nelson and Emma's relationship continued to flourish, and they had a son together whom they named Horatia. Nelson was a devoted father and was said to have doted on his son, even though he was unable to provide him with a stable family life. Tragedy struck in 1797 when Nelson was killed in battle during the Battle of Copenhagen. He was shot in the head by a Danish sniper and died shortly afterwards. Emma was devastated by the loss of her lover and partner, and she never remarried. She spent the rest of her life mourning Nelson and preserving his legacy. In the end, Lord Nelson's love for Lady Emma Hamilton cost him his life. Despite knowing that his feelings for Emma were inappropriate, Nelson couldn't help but be drawn to her charm and beauty. Their passionate romance quickly became a scandal in high society and ultimately led to the downfall of one of Britain's greatest naval heroes. But their story also reminds us that even the strongest of wills can be overcome by the power of love.